6 of our 365-day Bible read. Today we're going to be reading Deuteronomy chapters 3 and chapter 4, and then we're going to do the Bible study for Deuteronomy chapter 3 and chapter 4, and then we're going to go on over to the New Testament and read Mark chapter 11, and we'll do the Bible study for Mark chapter 11. We're going to get started. All right. Deuteronomy chapter 3. The defeat of King Og. Deuteronomy chapter 3. Then we turned and went up the way to Bashan, and Og the king of Bashan came out against us, he and all his people, to battle at Edrei. But the Lord said to me, do not fear him, for I have given him and all his people and his land into your hand. And you shall do to him as you did to Sihon, the king of the Amorites, who lived at Heshbon. So the Lord our God gave into our hand Og also, the king of Bashan, and all his people, and we struck him down until he had no survivor left. And we took all his cities at that time. There was not a city that we did not take from them. 60 cities, the whole region of Argob, the kingdom of Og and Bashan. All these were cities fortified with high walls, gates, and bars, besides very many unwalled villages. And we devoted them to destruction, as we did to Sihon, the king of Heshbon, devoting to destruction every city, men, women, and children. But all the livestock and the spoil of the cities we took as our plunder. So we took the land at that time out of the hand of the two kings of the Amorites, who were beyond the Jordan, from the valley of the Arnon to Mount Hermon. The Sidonians call Hermon Sirion, while the Amorites call it Sinner. All the cities of the tableland, and all Gilead, and all Bashan, as far as Salakah and Edrei, cities of the kingdom of Og and Bashan. For only Og, the king of Bashan, was left of the remnant of the Rephaim. Behold, his bed was a bed of iron. It is not in Rabbah of the Ammonites. 9 cubits was its length, and 4 cubits its breadth, according to the common cubit. When we took possession of this land at that time, I gave to the Reubenites and the Gadites, the territory beginning at Arar, which is on the edge of the valley of the Arnon, and half the hill country of Gilead with its cities. The rest of Gilead and all Bashan, the kingdom of Og, that is, all the region of Argob, I gave to the half-tribe of Manasseh. All that portion of Bashan is called the land of Rephaim. Jair the Manassite took all the region of Argob, that is, Bashan, as far as the border of the Geshurites and the Maacathites, and called the villages after his own name, Havoth Jair, as it is to this day. To Machir I gave Gilead, and to the Reubenites and the Gadites I gave the territory from Gilead as far as the valley of the Arnon, with the middle of the valley as a border, as far over as the river Jabbok, the border of the Ammonites, the Arabah, also with the Jordan as the border from Shinnereth, as far as the sea of the Arabah, the salt sea, under the slopes of Pisgah on the east. And I commanded you at that time, saying, the Lord your God has given you this land to possess. All your men of valor shall cross over armed before your brothers, the people of Israel. Only your wives, your little ones, and your livestock, I know that you have much livestock, shall remain in the cities that I have given you, until the Lord gives rest to your brothers as to you, and they also occupy the land that the Lord your God gives them beyond the Jordan. Then each of you may return to his possession, which I have given you. And I commanded Joshua at that time, your eyes have seen all that the Lord your God has done to these two kings. So will the Lord do to all the kingdoms into which you are crossing. You shall not fear them, for it is the Lord your God who fights for you. Moses, forbidden to enter the land. And I pleaded with the Lord at that time, saying, O Lord God, you have only begun to show your servant your greatness and your mighty hand. For what God is there in heaven or on earth who can do such works and mighty acts as yours? Please let me go over and see the good land beyond the Jordan, that good hill country and Lebanon. That good hill country and Lebanon. But the Lord was angry with me because of you and would not listen to me. And the Lord said to me, enough from you. Do not speak to me of this matter again. Go up to the top of Pisgah and lift up your eyes westward and northward and southward and eastward and look at it with your eyes, for you shall not go over this Jordan, but charge Joshua and encourage and strengthen him, for he shall go over at the head of his people. And he shall, at the head of this people, and he shall put them in possession of the land that you shall see. So we remained in the valley opposite Beth Peor. All right, so that was Deuteronomy chapter 3. We're now going to do the Bible study for Deuteronomy chapter 3, and then we'll come back and we'll read Deuteronomy chapter 4, and then we'll do the Bible study for Deuteronomy chapter 4. Okay, hi everyone. Okay, so we're reading from the Old Testament. We just read Deuteronomy chapter 3, and we're now going to do the Bible study for Deuteronomy chapter 3. All right, it's only 5 questions. Okay, so not that long. Okay, Deuteronomy chapter 3 Bible study. Who did the Israelites defeat at Bashan? Israel defeated Og, king of Bashan. Describe the size of King Og. Og was a giant. How large was his bed? Og's bed was 9 cubits by 4 cubits, approximately 13 feet long by 6 feet wide. What 3 tribes took their possessions early on the east side of the Jordan? Reuben, Gad, and the half tribe of Manasseh took possession of their land on the east side of the Jordan. Why could Moses not enter the promised land? Moses had made God angry at Kadesh by not haloing him before the people before commanding water out of the rock. All right, so that was the Bible study for Deuteronomy chapter 3. So we're now going to go back, reading from the Old Testament, and read Deuteronomy chapter 4, and then we'll do the Bible study for that, and then we'll go on over to the New Testament, and we'll read Mark chapter 11, and then we'll do the Bible study for Mark chapter 11, and that will complete our day. All right. Deuteronomy chapter 4. Moses commands obedience. And now, O Israel, listen to the statutes and the rules that I am teaching you, and do them that you may live, and go in and take possession of the land that the Lord, the God of your fathers, is giving you. You shall not add to the word that I command you, nor take from it, that you may keep the commandments of the Lord your God that I command you. Your eyes have seen what the Lord did at Baal Peor. For the Lord your God destroyed from among you all the men who followed the Baal of Peor. But you who held fast to the Lord your God are all alive today. See, I have taught you statutes and rules, as the Lord my God commanded me, that you should do them in the land that you are entering to take possession of it. Keep them and do them, for that keep them and do them, for that will be your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the peoples, who, when they hear all these statutes, will say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. For what great nation is there that has a God so near to it as the Lord our God is to us, whenever we call upon him? And what great nation is there that has statutes and rules so righteous as all this law that I set before you today? Only take care and keep your soul diligently, lest you forget the things that your eyes have seen, and lest they depart from your heart all the days of your life. Make them known to your children and your children's children, how on the day that you stood before the Lord your God at Horeb, the Lord said to me, gather the people to me, that I may let them hear my words, so that they may learn to fear me all the days that they live on the earth, and that they may teach their children so. And you came near and stood at the foot of the mountain, while the mountain burned with fire to the heart of heaven, wrapped in darkness, cloud, and gloom. Then the Lord spoke to you out of the midst of the fire. You heard the sound of words, but saw no form. There was only a voice, and he declared to you this covenant. And he declared to you his covenant, which he commanded you to perform. That is the 10 Commandments. And he wrote them on 2 tablets of stone. And the Lord commanded me at that time to teach you statutes and rules, that you might do them in the land that you are going over to possess. Idolatry forbidden. Therefore, watch yourselves very carefully, since you saw no form on the day that the Lord spoke to you at Horeb out of the midst of the fire. Beware lest you act corruptly by making a carved image for yourselves in the form of any figure, the likeness of male or female, the likeness of any animal that is on the earth, the likeness of any winged bird that flies in the air, the likeness of anything that creeps on the ground, the likeness of any fish that is in the water under the earth. And beware lest you raise your eyes to heaven, and when you see the sun and the moon and the stars, all the hosts of heaven, you be drawn away and bow down to them and serve them, things that the Lord your God has allotted to all the peoples under the whole heaven. But the Lord has taken you and brought you out of the iron furnace, out of Egypt, to be a people of his own inheritance, as you are this day. Furthermore, the Lord was angry with me because of you, and he swore that I should not cross the Jordan, and that I should not enter the good land that the Lord your God is giving you for an inheritance. For I must die in this land. I must not go over the Jordan. But you shall go over and take possession of that good land. Take care lest you forget the covenant of the Lord your God, which he made with you, and made a carved image, the form of anything that the Lord your God has forbidden you. For the Lord your God is a consuming fire, a jealous God. When you father children and children's children and have grown old in the land, if you act corruptly by making a carved image in the form of anything and by doing what is evil in the sight of the Lord your God, so as to provoke him to anger, I call heaven and earth to witness against you today that you will soon utterly perish from the land that you are going over the Jordan to possess. You will not live long in it, but will be utterly destroyed. And the Lord will scatter you among the peoples, and you will be left few in number among the nations where the Lord will drive you. And there you will serve gods of wood and stone, the work of human hands, that neither see nor hear nor eat nor smell. But from there you will seek the Lord your God, and you will find him, if you search after him with all your heart and with all your soul. When you are in tribulation and all these things come upon you in the latter days, you will return to the Lord your God and obey his voice. For the Lord your God is a merciful God. He will not leave you or destroy you or forget the covenant with your fathers that he swore to them. The Lord alone is God. For ask now of the days that are past, which were before you, since the day that God created man on the earth, and ask from one end of heaven to the other, whether such a great thing as this has ever happened or was ever heard of. Did any people ever hear the voice of a God speaking out of the midst of the fire, as you have heard, and still live? Or has any God ever attempted to go and take a nation for himself from the midst of another nation by trials, by signs, by wonders, and by war, by a mighty hand and an outstretched arm, and by great deeds of terror, all of which the Lord your God did for you in Egypt before your eyes? To you it was shown, that you might know that the Lord is God. There is no other besides him. Out of heaven he let you hear his voice, that he might discipline you. And on earth he let you see his great fire, and you heard his words out of the midst of the fire. And because he loved your fathers and chose their offspring after them, and brought you out of Egypt with his own presence, by his great power, driving out before you nations greater and mightier than you, to bring you in, to give you their land for an inheritance, as it is this day. Know therefore today, and lay it to your heart, that the Lord is God in heaven above and on the earth beneath. There is no other. Therefore you shall keep his statutes and his commandments, which I command you today, that it may go well with you and with your children after you, and that you may prolong your days in the land that the Lord your God is giving you for all time. Cities of refuge. Then Moses set apart 3 cities in the east beyond the Jordan, that the manslayer might flee there. Anyone who kills his neighbor unintentionally without being at enmity with him in time past, he may flee to one of these cities and save his life. Bezer in the wilderness on the tableland for the Reubenites, Ramoth and Gilead for the Gadites, and Golan and Bashan for the Manassites. Introduction to the law. This is the law that Moses set before the people of Israel. These are the testimonies, the statutes, and the rules which Moses spoke to the people of Israel when they came out of Egypt, beyond the Jordan in the valley opposite Beth Peor, in the land of Sihon, the king of the Amorites, who lived at Heshbon, whom Moses and the people of Israel defeated when they came out of Egypt. And they took possession of his land in the land of Og, the king of Bashan, the two kings of the Amorites who lived to the east beyond the Jordan, from Aroer, which is on the edge of the valley of the Arnon, as far as Mount Sirion, that is Hermon, together with all the Arabah on the east side of the Jordan, as far as the sea of the Arabah under the slopes of Pisgah. All right, so that was Deuteronomy chapter 4, and we're now going to do the Bible study for Deuteronomy chapter 4. We just read Deuteronomy chapter 3, then we did the Bible study for Deuteronomy chapter 3, and then now this was Deuteronomy chapter 4, and now we're going to do the Bible study for Deuteronomy chapter 4. All right, so Deuteronomy chapter 4 Bible study. Who spoke to Israel at Mount Horeb out of a fire? God spoke to Israel at Mount Horeb in a fire. What were the Israelites never to make for themselves concerning God? Excuse me. Israel was never to make any form or image of God to worship. What other things was Israel never to worship? Israel was never to worship the heavens or the things in it, sun, moon, and stars. How could Israel prolong their days and it be well with them and their children? Israel could prolong their days by keeping God's commandments and statutes. What were the 3 cities of refuge on the east side of the Jordan? The 3 cities of refuge on the east side of the Jordan was Bezer for Reuben, Ramoth for Gad, and Golan for the half tribe of Manasseh. All right, so that was Deuteronomy chapter 4 Bible study. So that was from the Old Testament. We read Deuteronomy chapter 3 and Deuteronomy chapter 4, and we did the Bible study for both Deuteronomy chapter 3 and 4. And now we're going on over to the New Testament now, and we're going to read Mark chapter 11, and we'll do the Bible study for Mark chapter 11, and then our day will be complete. Okay, hello, if you're just joining. Okay, so Mark chapter 11 Bible study. The triumphal entry. Now, when they drew near to Jerusalem, to Bethphage and Bethany at the Mount of Olives, Jesus sent 2 of his disciples and said to them, "Go into the village in front of you, and immediately as you enter it, you will find a colt tied on which no one has ever sat. Untie it and bring it." On which no one has ever sat. Untie it and bring it. If anyone says to you, "Why are you doing this?" say, "The Lord has need of it and will send it back here immediately." And they went away and found a colt tied at a door outside in the street, and they untied it. And some of those standing there said to them, "What are you doing, untying the colt?" And they told them what Jesus had said, and they let them go. And they brought the colt to Jesus and threw their cloaks on it, and he sat on it. And many spread their cloaks on the road, and others spread leafy branches that they had cut from the fields. And those who went before and those who followed were shouting, Hosanna! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the coming kingdom of our father David. Hosanna in the highest. And he entered Jerusalem and went into the temple. And when he had looked around at everything, as it was already late, he went out to Bethany with the 12. Jesus curses the fig tree. On the following day, when they came from Bethany, he was hungry, and seeing in the distance a fig tree in leaf, he went to see if he could find anything on it. When he came to it, he found nothing but leaves, for it was not the season for figs. And he said to it, May no one ever eat fruit from you again. And his disciples heard it. Jesus cleanses the temple. And they came to Jerusalem, and he entered the temple and began to drive out those who sold and those who bought in the temple. And he overturned the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who sold pigeons. And he would not allow anyone to carry anything through the temple. And he was teaching them and saying to them, It is not written, My house shall be called a house of prayer for all the nations, but you have made it a den of robbers. And the chief priests and scribes heard it and were seeking a way to destroy him, for they feared him, because all the crowd was astonished, at his teaching. And when evening came, they went out of the city. The lesson from the withered fig tree. As they passed by in the morning, they saw the fig tree withered away to its roots. And Peter remembered and said to him, Rabbi, look, the fig tree that you cursed has withered. And Jesus answered them, Have faith in God. Truly I say to you, whoever says to this mountain, Be taken up and thrown into the sea, and does not doubt in his heart, but believes that what he says will come to pass, it will be done for him. Therefore, I tell you, whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. And whenever you stand praying, forgive if you have anything against anyone, so that your Father also who is in heaven may forgive you your trespasses. The authority of Jesus challenged. And they came again to Jerusalem, and as he was walking in the temple, the chief priests and the scribes and the elders came to him, and they said to him, By what authority are you doing these things? Or who gave you this authority to do them? Jesus said to them, I will ask you one question. Answer me, and I will tell you by what authority I do these things. Was the baptism of John from heaven or from man? Answer me. And they discussed it with one another, saying, If we say from heaven, he will say, Why then did you not believe him? But shall we say from man? They were afraid of the people, for they all held that John really was a prophet. So they answered Jesus, We do not know. And Jesus said to them, Neither will I tell you by what authority I do these things. All right, so that was Mark chapter 11, and we will now do the Bible study for Mark chapter 11. Mark chapter 11 Bible study. On what did Jesus ride into Jerusalem? Jesus rode on a colt, the foal of a donkey, coming into Jerusalem. What did the people spread on the ground for Jesus? The people spread their clothes and leafy branches from trees for Jesus. Why did Jesus run the merchants out of the temple? They were buying and selling, and instead of praying and worshiping God, the temple was to be a house of prayer and worship, not a place to do business. What happened to a fig tree that Jesus cursed? The fig tree cursed by Jesus was withered. What lesson can we take from this? God expects us to produce fruit, not just profess our faith. God doesn't want a people who are all leaves and no fruit. What is a condition for our forgiveness? God wants us to forgive others, then He will forgive us. All right, so that was Mark chapter 11 Bible study. So a quick recap of what we did today from the Old Testament. We read Deuteronomy chapter 3 and chapter 4, and then we did the Bible study for Deuteronomy chapter 3 and chapter 4, and then we went on over to the New Testament and we read Mark chapter 11, and then we did the Bible study for Mark chapter 11. So our day 66 is complete. I love you guys. God loves you. You matter. You are enough. You are important. You are valuable. You are worthy. And you are a Jesus Christ champion. And I am proud of you. And I'm excited for you on this journey. And I'm excited for your futures. And I love you guys. And I will see you guys tomorrow for day 67. Enjoy the rest of your night, guys. Be great.